Let's resume the meeting. For the second session of the hearing, we will start now. We have with us as witnesses Mr. Simon Pei, Commissioner, ICAC, Ms. Julie Mu, Director of Community Relations, ICAC, and Acting Assistant Director, Administration, ICAC, Mrs. Jenny Aoyang Wong. If I may remind the witnesses here that during the course of the proceedings on questions of key issues raised by select committee members, if you deliberately give false answers or provide false documents with a view to deceiving the select committee, that is a criminal offense. Mr. Pei, on the 19th of February 2014, you provided a witness statement to the Select Committee. That's paper number W2(C) of the Select Committee. Do you now formally produce the statement as evidence to the Select Committee? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes. To facilitate those in the public gallery in following the proceedings of the Select Committee, we will make available the witness statement of the Commissioner. And the witness statement will also be uploaded to the LegCo website. Commissioner, do you have anything to add to the witness statement now? No, Mr. Chairman, I have nothing particular to add, but with your permission, I would like to make an opening statement. Yes, you could do so. I will invite you in a moment to speak. Mr. Pei, you also provided a number of documents to the clerk to the Select Committee. ICAC 1 to 4 and ICAC 1(C) to ICAC 8(C). Commissioner, do you now formally produce these documents to the Select Committee as evidence? Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. In that case, we will also upload those documents to the LegCo's web page. Commissioner, now you may speak to supplement your witness statement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members, for inviting me to the hearing today. This allows me an opportunity to briefly explain the issues in relation to the official duty visits and receipt of gifts and so on under the ICAC jurisdiction. On the relevant regulatory mechanisms on duty visits, bestowing and receipt of gifts, the Independent Review Committee has come up with a series of recommendations. I'm grateful to the committee for their hard work. ICAC has already adopted those recommendations in improving our internal regulatory and audit system. The ICAC has also revised and updated the relevant Commission standing order in relation to duty visits, bestowing and receipt of gifts. We've also sent out notices to staff to further explain the new CSO requirements. We've also held workshops to help staff better understand the new requirements. At the meeting of the Security Panel on the 27th of May 2013, I've also briefed you on the new requirements in the CSO. We've also set up an internal audit unit in October 2013 to do internal audit. On the 12th of December 2013, I've reported the work of the ICAC in improving such arrangements to the Advisory Committee on Corruption. As for my own duty visits, bestowing a receipt of gifts, I've submitted information to the committee for their perusal. Now, we will be submitting regular audit reports to the advisory committee so that there will be strengthened monitoring of the work of the ICAC. Now, in April 2013, on the list of gifts sent to LegCo, there was inaccuracy in the list. I've already given a full explanation at the Security Panel meeting on the 27th of May 2013. And then on the 6th of September 2013, there were questions asked by the Select Committee. I've given reply. I would like to say that there is not a deliberate attempt of the ICAC to cover up information. At that time, for souvenirs and gifts not yet sent out, there's some separate full record outside the account of the department. And also, when Mr. Tong was the commissioner, he sent out gifts and souvenirs in the name of the ICAC. He was assisted by the Community Relations Department, but he was also assisted by other departments such as the Administrative Branch. In these 5 years, there was personnel change in the Community Relations Department and the Administration Branch for all the souvenirs given out, so there was not a full record by staff in these departments. That's why when the ICAC replied to the question, we just based our reply on the records kept by the Community Relations Department and the Administration Branch. But then it was only later that we found out that record did not cover all the gifts given to other officials. There was a media report saying that there were more gifts sent out than those on the list. So in the light of the report, we asked our staff we deployed over 20 staff members to conduct a comprehensive manual check of over 2,500 records of payment and vouchers kept in more than 600 document files later. And then we were able to compile a list of all the gifts souvenirs given to all those who acted as speakers or attended ICAC functions. Well, but we weren't able to provide all the information sooner. It was only until the panel on security meeting at the 27th of May 2013 that we were able to provide the full records. I already apologized to the panel, and now we have improved upon the system. We have computerized all such records. On the 6th of September 2013, I've given written reply to the Select Committee on the major area of study. I would like to point out that I'm still leading a special investigation team on the complaints regarding Mr. Timothy Tong. I want to make sure that the investigation is done impartially and fairly. So that's why I myself and the ICAC are in no position to provide information in relation to matters involving Mr. Timothy Tong under investigation. So I am in no position to touch upon such issues in replying to members' questions. I ask for your understanding. On the 8th of November 2013, I provided a number of documents to the Select Committee. And there are now people assisting in criminal investigation, including Mr. Tong. If there is sufficient evidence to prosecute Mr. Timothy Tong, then these colleagues who have been helping with the investigation may become witnesses as well. So to ensure the integrity and impartiality of our investigation and to ensure the integrity of possible future criminal prosecutions, so all those involved in the investigation should not be giving evidence to the Select Committee on any matters that might involve the criminal investigation. If it's outside of that realm, then I will certainly cooperate fully with the Select Committee to answer members' questions. I'd like to point out that ICAC officers dedicated to the work. They have integrity. They are impartial. Their duty is to fight corruption. So that's why we attach great importance to the conduct and behavior of ICAC officers. In the past year, there have been a lot of queries about the work of the ICAC officers to not happy, but we will continue to do our best so we could have the trust and confidence of the public. And we will certainly keep improving our internal mechanisms to improve upon our performance. And I'm sure the ICAC will play an even stronger role in fighting corruption and ensuring a clean culture in Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pei, for your supplement. I see that, Mr. Pei, you have speaking notes. Can you give us your speaking notes so that it can be given to members for their reference? Thank you. Yes, I can. I have a question to ask you. That'll be your first question. In your opening speech, you have already answered my question. My question was whether, at the beginning, you gave us a very small amount. It was only 220,000, and later it was increased to 1.3 million. But you already have given us a detailed answer. But I'd like to ask a follow-up question. You said that the main reason for that was something to do with the different understanding of gifts, and you also mentioned about not having enough time and not giving it thorough consideration. And you've also stressed that there was no concealment whatsoever. I have a question for the Commissioner. Do you now still think that is a matter of judgment when it comes to gifts and food? And as a result, the information you provided to the Finance Committee was different, and it was not a deliberate attempt to conceal the facts. Commissioner, if you refer to the Special Finance Committee, the reply to the Special FC ICAC 2014 L6, you can see that we have answered members' question. At the end of the answer, which was ICAC 014, it says that, gifts paid out to government organizations and officials of different places, that refers to officials of different places, but whether that was whether the understanding of official was the same as in the question, I think there is room for debate. Members will ask Mr. Pei some questions. We have Ms. Sid Ho, the Deputy Chairman, Gary Chan, James To, Kenneth Leung, Lo Ai Kwok, Chung Kok Pan. Give an indication if other members have questions to ask. Deputy Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank the Commissioner and his colleagues for attending the Select Committee hearing. I think we share the same goal. We would like to identify areas for improvement, whether it is in relation to an individual or to the system, because we all would like to see improvement to restore confidence of the public of the ICAC. At the beginning of May, we heard from the Commissioner that he would spare no effort in his cooperation with the Select Committee. But since there was an ongoing criminal investigation, the Secretariat could not obtain information from the ICAC, albeit requests were made. In particular, the minutes of the Commissioner's weekly meeting. If Mr. Pei, you heard the previous session, you would gather that it's like pulling teeth. And if we had the minutes of meeting, then it would not be so difficult for us. The ICAC could not supply information requested, which made the getting of evidence difficult. And that is in relation to two areas: the Commissioners' weekly meeting and the correspondence between different departments, between different heads, and memos, emails between the commissioner and his assistants or secretary. If we had those information, then we would be able to get a better picture. Unfortunately, we don't have that. But we still would like to find out what happened so that the public will understand. Well, we asked questions in A and parts A, B. You said that you could give us answers, and that's mentioned in some of your correspondence to us. For part 2 paragraphs 1B to E, you were not able to give us the information. Well, can you explain to us why for part A, D to E, you are not in a position to supply us with the information? Are you able to do so later? When will the investigation reach the end of one stage? Say, for example, when the next stage is the legal proceedings. Is it the case that the Commissioner may consider supplying the information to us at the end of that stage, the stage of your investigation? Mr. Pei, in relation to the information asked for by the Select Committee, well, I have given a written answer, and that is exactly the scope of our criminal investigation, and for that reason, all relevant information, statements, and documents cannot be released because it may be prejudice to the investigation and to the person involved. We have sent a letter to the PAC, and the PAC sent the information to the Select Committee, and on numerous occasions I have said that I don't want to affect the fairness and impartiality of the investigation. We cannot discuss certain matters. It will not be appropriate. Since there is an ongoing investigation, I cannot tell how it will pan out. Perhaps in the end there will be a criminal prosecution, or there may be not. It is a hypothetical question, so I'm not able to answer you. Can the Commissioner tell us the scope of the investigation? Mr. Pei, the scope of the investigation is rather extensive. Of course, it includes the gifts, the duty visits, the entertainments, including the acceptance of gifts. So the scope is rather wide. Well, I see from the limited information supplied by the ACAC, when it comes to some mechanisms, procedures, say, for example, the responsibility of certain individual or department, the information itself is rather clear. Perhaps we can start from there. Just now, the Commissioner said that on numerous occasions that a person's integrity is very important, and they strive to improve the system and the mechanism. Since you've taken office, and from the information we have, Do you think the internal mechanism of the ICAC is sufficient to serve as a check and balance of the commissioner? Let's leave alone the issue of integrity. In the past, there were entertainment, there were gifts, and it has caused public outcry. You are the incumbent commissioner. Looking at the procedure, the mechanism of the past, do you think the current mechanism is sufficient, is an effective check and balance of the commissioner? Well, I've taken office for 20 months. There were some documents, some written records, but it cannot give me the full picture of the operation of various aspects. And as I've said, I've taken office for 20 months, and for many issues I've discussions with my colleagues. In the weekly meeting, we had meetings and discussions of different issues. The attendees were free to give their views, and there were different views, and in the end I have taken their views on board. And I think that the current mechanism is sufficient. And as I've mentioned before, we have the ACC, the Advisory Committee on Commission. We have to supply information and answer questions from them. Commissioner, for you is sufficient. And you said that in the weekly meetings that there were discussions and there were different views. Perhaps for other people that is not sufficient. Well, if you watched the hearing, you would know that we asked questions, and the answer was that according to the ex-commissioner, there was no substantial discussion, and he cannot remember whether there was some memorable discussions. But when there was no substantial discussion and something happened, and the public is of the view that that is not right, can the commissioner tell us, is there too much discretion in the current mechanism, and as a result the commissioner will not be subject to checks and balances? Well, I think it's rather subjective when one said that there was no substantial discussion, and it's not suitable for me to comment on it. For me, the operation of the ICAC, whether it is internal governance, I mentioned about the weekly meeting. We had discussions of on certain issues. It was a discussion among the senior echelon of the ICAC. The Advisory Committee on Corruption monitors our work, and we have exchanges, and that is sufficient. Where there are dissenting views or even objections, does the commissioner have the discretion to ignore the dissenting views and do what he wants to do? Commissioner, in theory, the commissioner should listen to the views expressed by colleagues, especially those from the higher ranks, because the ICAC is not a one-man band. The high echelon work together to govern the commission. That's my view. But the fact is that when it comes to duty visits, official entertainments, and gifts, the incumbent and the ex-commissioners have very different approach. And when it comes to the ex-commissioner, the perception of the public was rather negative. And I now would like to move on to another area, the record of the weekly meetings. Who actually penned the minutes? under the ADM, there is a colleague who serves as the secretary in the meeting. Is it a verbatim record, or is it just one that contains the conclusions? What about the discussions themselves? Would they be recorded? From the information I've seen, the minutes, it's a simple one covering important views and important discussions, and it's not verbatim. I think you will have to ask your final question. Also about the minutes of meeting, and I hope that I will have 2 to 3 follow-up questions. My understanding that it is not a verbatim minutes of meeting. So will dissenting views or different views be recorded? Because I know that for some minutes there will only be conclusions. So for the minutes of the weekly record, will the deliberations and the views expressed be recorded, or just the conclusions? Mr. Pei. From the minutes I've read, for some, views of different colleagues are stated, but they are rather brief. And for others, only the conclusions are recorded. Before the minutes is endorsed, will it be given to the chairman, who has the power to make suggestions to how the record should be how it should be made before the minutes is confirmed? An opportunity is given for everyone to express their views, and where there are amendments, and amendments will be made when there is consent. But will the drafts be perused by the chairman, and only with his consent will the minutes be tabled for members' discussions? From the record, there is no draft of the minutes of the weekly meeting. The one I receive will be the finalized one. But in the next meeting, if there are proposals for amendment, they may make it and for endorsement. In relation to your predecessor, was the practice the same as yours as you understand? Mr. Pei, I don't know. Next, Mr. Gary Chan, to be followed by Mr. James Toll. I thank the Commissioner and his colleagues to come to assist us in our work. I would like to ask questions about the mechanism of gifts. The ex-commissioner gave out gifts of various types, scarves, cameras, and other things which were deemed inappropriate by the public. I remember, Commissioner, you said when you took office that when it comes to gifts given to official organizations, you would only give the annual report or standard gifts of the ICAC. Is it your directive, or is it an established practice? This practice has already been written into the CSO, the Commission's standing order, to be abided by everyone in the ICAC. I would like to ask about the CSO. Please refer to Part 3 of Chapter 9 when it comes to regulations of bestowing and receiving gifts. Can you direct me to which appendix it is? It's ICAC 8(c). I think it's page 13. to 14 is in English. It's in relation to acceptance of gifts and how these gifts are to be dealt with. Chairman, are you talking about ICAC Staff Circular number 23/96? Yes. May I ask my question now? Yes. If you refer to 8, 9, 10, and 11, can you read it?
Paragraphs 8, 9, 10, and 11 of the standing orders. Can you find it, Mr. Pei? Yes. Thank you. Chairman, you will note that regarding the bestowing and the acceptance of gifts, basically you'll find the requirement that when ICAC staff accept any gifts, they will have to, seek permission from the heads of department. But there is no rule governing the commissioners accepting gifts. Perhaps initially when this document was being drafted, it was not considered that the commissioner might accept such gifts. So, Mr. Pei, going forward, do you think there is any need to also include a provision regarding the procedure for the commissioner to accept such gifts? Mr. Pei, regarding the first part of Mr. Chen's question, I'd like to ask the Director of Administration to answer the question, and then I'll supplement later. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chen's question. To answer Mr. Chen's question, I'd like to point out that the so-called internal circular and the standing order have already been updated. If you go to Appendix 1 of Annex 2, it's stated 2010. The question was in relation to what transpired previously. So the 1996 internal circular has now been scrapped. In 2010, well, the standing orders, we started having the standing orders in the year 2000, and the content of that circular has been incorporated into our standing orders. And those standing orders are subject to frequent updates. The latest version, in light of the internal procedures and the comments of the independent committee, we've updated that version. And in October 2013, we've updated that version, Mr. Chen. And it already covers the commissioner, yes. Also, if I may also add that the independent committee commented on paragraph 7 of the previous standing orders. I think the ICAC already has a policy at the time where we updated the standing orders because it was not very clear before regarding the rule that we should cut down on the bestowing of gifts. So that procedure has been clearly spelled out, and in our standing orders, the caption already states clearly that the acceptance of the arrangements regarding the acceptance of gifts. In the past, the acceptance of gifts, I think the rules only covers the acceptance of gifts. Could we ask the Commissioner to briefly explain to us how do the standing orders regulate the Commissioner's accepting of gifts? The witness and the chairman mentioned several times that basically we are now relying on the commissioner himself. We are relying on the personal integrity of the commissioner to decide whether or not he should accept gifts. Given these two different understandings, and the ICAC has already told us that you've already put it down in black and white in your standing orders. Well, in that case, why is it that we need a judgment, a personal judgment in deciding whether or not to accept gifts, and that we have to rely on personal integrity? Now, if I may clarify further on this point, in the standing orders, I was referring to Appendix 1 to Appendix 2, right at the outset. We refer to something called the AAN, which is actually the rules formulated by the chief executive regarding the treatment, how we should accept, regarding the acceptance of gifts. And all public officers have to follow the AAN. And there are some, we also have the CSRs, and the standing orders of the ICAC basically is modeled on the CSR, and the CSB's circular in the year 2007, 4/2007. That is the Commissioner for the ICAC is a public officer. He's also bound by those rules. Thank you. Mr. Chan. Public officers are, of course, bound by the CSR and also the ICAC's standing orders, the CSR. Now, we have problems with the previous commissioner. So does that mean that we have two regulatory regimes, and despite that there is still a gray area? Would the commissioner agree with that? And all the remedies that you've now proposed, are they sufficient to plug those loopholes and eliminate gray areas? Thank you, Chairman. The AAN that I refer to and the CSR, those restrictions will not make any difference. That is, will not change because of a change in the commissioner. So there's therefore no gray area. Secondly, after May last year, I have tightened the regulations, and regulations are even more stringent than what is required of public officers. So I believe that has really served the purpose. Chairman. Even now, even when we have the CSR and the AAN to bind to regulate the commissioner, the ICAC under the leadership of the commissioner does not appear to have a good mechanism to actually regulate the commissioner. We're only relying on his integrity. Hong Kong is successful because we have a good system. Many of our colleagues and I myself also believe that what has gone wrong with the previous commissioner has to do with the personality of Mr. Tong himself. How can we rely on a person's integrity to prevent, corrupt practices? I don't think we can just rely on a single person, on the individual. So, Mr. Commissioner, other than the solutions that you've proposed, do you think there's any better way for us to not have to rely on a person's integrity, but rather have our trust in the mechanism itself? Have the remedial measures that you've now come up with already given you the best system? Chairman, after May last year, after we have tightened the standing orders and the guidelines, I believe that to a very large extent we are no longer relying on a person's integrity. If I may give you an example, I have asked our accounting department to stringently comply with our rules Say, for example, if myself or any other person would like to buy a gift which exceeded the limit prescribed in the standing orders, then I have asked the accounting department not to, approve the payment. Furthermore, if we have any, dinner reception, and if we've exceeded the ceilings stipulated by the government's regulations, then let's say, then I myself will have to ask the deputy commissioner for his consent. In other words, I won't be the only person making the decision. If I myself and the deputy commissioner attend that function, then I would ask the administration branch to agree. For whether it's a dinner reception or the bestowing of gifts, if they exceeded the limit, then we have to report to the ACC, the Advisory Committee on Corruption. Of course, this has not happened during my term, but if that should happen, they will certainly ask why we've exceeded the ceiling for that function, and why is it that the gift that we gave had to be particularly expensive. So that should already serve the purpose. That is, whoever is the commissioner, the monitoring is already very stringent. Chairman, final question. The measures that you mentioned, Mr. Commissioner, how can you ensure that your successor will also adhere to them? Because these are only measures proposed by yourself during the term. It's not within the system. How can you ensure that the next commissioner, I mean, he may not be as, a man of integrity as yourself, so we have to trust the system and not the person. So, Commissioner, how can you give us the guarantee in terms of the system? Well, I think that system is not something decided solely by myself. We've already reported to the Advisory Committee on Corruption. They've accepted this, and it has become part of the established mechanism. And if the next commission wishes to change that, I believe that he would need to have the consent of the ACC. So that mechanism will ensure that in future, nobody can arbitrarily change that mechanism. Mr. James Toh, followed by Mr. Kenneth Chan. Chairman, since the Commissioner took up his office, it is true that he has implemented many reforms. And even within a few weeks' time, he's made a judgment and come up with solutions and improvements which prove to be effective. So what I'd like to clarify now are some details. According to ICAC 1, Appendix 48, 40. And here is that providing inaccurate, incomplete, and outdated information and irrelevant records. To put it directly, we're talking about the several tens of thousands of dollars used to procure the cakes, and there was not the information was not provided. Mr. Kwok had raised the question at the FC meeting. The director of the CRD and the assistant director of the admin department provided some information, and then there was a discussion. After the deliberation, the two believe that even if the pastry were given to the commissioner, they were consumed by the staff, and therefore they were not incorporated in the reply to the question by the FC. So in that process, the director of the CRD and the deputy director of the admin department, have they sought your direction, Mr. Commissioner, about that? Commissioner. Chairman. All matters relating to the special FC meeting and our reply, we will discuss them at our weekly meetings. We will deliberate as to how we should respond to the questions. And in my opening remark, I've already said this. That is, we knew at the time that the proposals from the department I think we already answered the question from the FC in 2014. Our colleagues' understanding at the time was that the souvenirs presented to the officials. So I think that was the answer we gave. It was souvenirs presented to an official. But at that meeting we did not discuss the details. It was only afterwards when I discovered that the figures that we reported did not tally with the scope of the question raised by the member. So I made further inquiries with my colleagues about the figure that they reported and how they arrived at that figure. I only learned about that from my colleagues afterwards. Mr. To, but does the Commissioner mean that at that weekly meeting, your colleagues did not provide you with detailed information and justification? That is, they held this view that these cakes were to be consumed in that manner, and therefore they did not need to be included in the FC paper. Was there any detailed information presented at the weekly meeting for discussion and for you to make that decision? Commissioner. According to my recollection now, at the weekly meeting, we did not particularly discuss this issue of food. Chairman, I don't know whether or not we can also put our questions to the two colleagues of the Commissioner. I mean, to be fair. If I may put this question to the Director of the CRLD, do you remember that at the weekly meetings at the time, is it true that you did not present detailed information for those who attended for discussion? Especially, it was your argument that you've thought about that and decided it was not necessary to provide such details. Director,
Now, what we submitted to the administration branch, it was in response to Mr. Ernest Kwok's question. And then when we submitted the information to the weekly meeting, by then the administration branch has already prepared an answer for submission to LegCo. So at the weekly meeting, we considered the overall response of the ICAC. But then I did point out at the meeting that the Community Relations Department submitted information 2 points, and I told the weekly meeting that first, the definition of gift. I said I've talked to the Assistant Director Administration. Gift, by that it meant souvenir. That's why we made it clear it's souvenir. But then the question also asked that each time the Commissioner presented gifts to government officials, how much it was, because it's about each time. So our interpretation was that perhaps on a duty visit, the Commissioner might visit 8 or 10 different organizations. So each time, does it cover the entire duty visit or each organization? And so we had some discussion, and then we decided each time means the gifts given to each organization for the duty visit. So we added up all the gifts for the organizations, and then we gave that information to the weekly meeting. Director, you said gifts, and in your view, gifts did not include food items. Was that your judgment? Ms. Mu, when I replied to the PACI, I gave an explanation. I said at the time, colleagues asked me. Now the Community Relations Department was asked to give information, but it covers many other items like publicity materials and so on. And I said the answer was about the entire ICAC, not just the Community Relations Department. That's why I asked the administration branch that and suggested we should see whether we could form a view together. And having talked to the Assistant Director Administration, we decided that publicity material should not be regarded as gifts, so it was not included. As for food items, they presented to other organizations. They did not carry any significant value, not some sort of something that could be kept. So that's why we decided it was taken out. But Mr. Dennis Kwok's question was clear. He didn't mention souvenirs. He just said gifts presented to government officials. Now, biscuits are gifts. It's not, especially if it's not just a small sum. Mr. Mu? Well, after we gave the reply, and there were follow-up questions, and then there was a question of whether we tried to cover up anything from LegCo. It caused quite a row. But then we found then that, yes, of course, maybe there was a problem with our interpretation or the way we handled it. But I must say that at the time when we discussed the matter, we didn't think it was that complicated. We didn't look at it in that other light. We just thought it was about souvenirs. And afterwards, we did explain to the public. Yes, the way we handled it, it wasn't desirable. But I must say this here again, that I never had the intention to cover up anything. I didn't ask you what your intention was. I'm just saying that if you had formed this judgment, it's hard to understand why you formed this judgment. It's not about your intention or motive, but rather, could it lead to the suspicion that at the time you'd rather form the judgment that these were not souvenirs? So maybe it's not your motive or intention, but it was rather your own analysis, which was not comprehensive, or it was poor even. It could be due to that too. So that's why I like to get it from you. At the meeting or in your discussions, were there any arguments put forward that biscuits and cakes should not be regarded as gifts? Or perhaps it's open to debate, but if you say it's open to debate, then I couldn't follow why that's the case. So for food items, was it ever mentioned at the meeting that they should be regarded as gifts as well? Yeah, did someone advance any specific arguments? Ms. Mu? Well, food items were not presented to specific government officials. That's our understanding. So we did not examine further the term gift, because we thought food items were not really for the individual government officials. That's why we decided not to include them in the list. Now, okay, food items could be consumed, but there are other items that could be consumed, or that's why you don't regard them as gifts? Ms. Mu? Mr. Chair, I do not know what you're referring to. Because this question remains valid, because at the special FC we could ask that question. The special FC meeting is just around the corner. Now, on the same point, okay, food items may not be regarded as gifts. It's the same for items that are consumables. Is it only ornamental items without any real use that they would be regarded as gifts? So what do you mean by gifts? What's your understanding of gifts? Because we will ask the same question again at the special FC meetings. So would you now have a different understanding as you reply to LegCo, or would it be the case that in your mind what you think? Now, the LegCo asks about such a question because we want to know how much you spend overall on all these items, and then instead of deciding on the scope of the term covers, what is your thinking? Now, of course, Mr. Simon Pei signed the answers. Maybe he could answer that too. Mr. Pei. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my opening remarks, I said that we've made improvement. Of course, it will take time for the computerization process to be completed. But in terms of documentary records, we have made improvement. And in my opening remarks, I said that based on the understanding given to me by my colleagues, in the 2014 answer is stated as souvenirs. Their understanding of the member's question was such that they thought it's about some souvenirs. But of course, looking back, it seems that our understanding of the member's question was not entirely correct. That's why we issued a public apology. We also apologized to LegCo. So at the time, yes, our understanding was not entirely accurate. This year, if at the special FC meetings there are similar questions, I can guarantee that we would not see the repeat of such an incident. For all the gifts we send out, gifts, souvenirs, or even food items, or any other items, they would be fully recorded in the list. Mr. To, if you read it in context, we're not just talking about specifically souvenirs. You know, souvenirs like with inscription, with your logo and so on. Maybe the concern is not as serious, but I mean, if you keep giving out notepads, so what? But here, our concern is that it's not about those souvenirs for ornamental purpose. Are you giving out expensive gifts? That's really our concern. Now, so if your understanding is that food items are not souvenirs, consumables are not souvenirs, then the list could go on. But that's exactly where our concern lies. Now, having heard Mr. Pei, I think in future, we will all be very clear about the meaning of the term. You know, we asked a lot of special FC questions. Some departments deliberately gave technical answers, and inadequacies could be unearthed in the course of the meetings. But this is an open hearing. I hope now for other departments they will see that what we mean, and they will be more clear about what we mean in our questions. Mr. Pei, you've been the commissioner for 20 months. In that 20 months, have you ever been in touch with consuls general or including officials of the foreign ministry? Mr. Pei, I've invited consuls general to lunch once. I gave the details. How many did you invite? Could you please repeat the information? Mr. Chairman, please allow me to look up the document. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've located the document. 85 guests were invited on that occasion. Was the reception held at the staff canteen of ICC? It reads so here. Yes, indeed, Mr. Chairman. In accordance with Cap 204 ICC Ordinance, is your contact with consuls general an important function of the Commission? Mr. Pei, well, there is a need to do so, but whether it's a major function or important function, that would be a subjective remark. Personally, I would not describe it as a major or important. I would say these are regular contacts we keep with overseas law enforcement agencies. We have work liaison with them, and in the course of our investigation work, very often it might involve criminal conduct across the boundary. Outside of Hong Kong, so we might need the assistance of other law enforcement agencies to help us interview witnesses or collect evidence. So to facilitate our work, we need to keep in good relations with overseas law enforcement agencies. Their representatives in Hong Kong are, of course, the consuls general and staff of the consulates general. So that's why we have regular meeting with them once a year. On the 25th of December 2012, there was lunch. Mr. Pei, did you do other things like singing karaoke or having beer drinking contest? Well, lunch is always a bit rushed. It lasted just about an hour, and it was a buffet. And after the buffet lunch, everybody just left. There were no other activities. Mr. Kenneth Leung, as far as you could recall, in that luncheon, did you invite the commissioner of the foreign ministry? I invited him, but he did not attend. Now, a question for Ms. Julie Mo. For the lunch held on the 25th of October 2012, could you recall if it was the Community Relations Department that organized the lunch? Yes. When Mr. Timothy Tong hosted a dinner at the staff canteen of the ICAC in September 2011, were you responsible for making the arrangement? Yes, Mr. Chairman. Now, from reports, it's just from reports, it may not be true. In the Community Relations Department, there's the Management and Strategy Office, MSO, which is in charge of organizing such functions like hosting receptions for consuls general and so on, and diplomats. Yes, it's the MSO that organizes the functions, and that MSO includes yourself. Well, that's under the Community Relations Department. Okay, so it's under the Community Relations Department. For the 2011 September reception, did you propose different arrangements to Mr. Timothy Tong? When Mr. Tong gave evidence just now, he confirmed that there was karaoke singing, there was a beer drinking contest. Do you make alternative suggestions to him for that occasion? Ms. Mu. I think the Commissioner made it clear from the outset. For any matters involving Mr. Timothy Tong, because there is now an ongoing criminal investigation, the coverage is extensive, and colleagues may have to become witnesses in future. That's why I am not in a position to discuss this matter. I ask for your understanding. Yes, I appreciate that, but my question, hearing me out, listen carefully, I asked whether you made alternative suggestions. I didn't ask about Mr. Timothy Tong, actually. Mr. Simon Pei, if you believe Ms. Mu is in a position to answer, you can direct her to do so. But if you believe that there's an ongoing criminal investigation, actually I didn't touch upon Mr. Timothy Tong. I just asked whether Ms. Mu made alternative suggestions. Mr. Pei, Mr. Chairman, if Ms. Mu is to reply, now I don't know what the answer is, but if she is to reply, it may affect the criminal investigation. So therefore, I think it's appropriate for her to answer the question. In that case, I will not pursue this matter. Let me turn to another subject, Mr. Pei. ICAC Commissioner receiving gifts. The Civil Service Bureau and the ICAC have different guidelines. As the ICAC Commissioner, he is a civil servant. In his personal capacity accepting advantage, or in his official capacity accepting advantage, there are different ways to handle that, because even for the CSB circulars there are two separate guidelines. So my question for the Commissioner is this. The person who bestows the gift, it was originally a work contact of the Commissioner, but over time he's become a good friend. But so the line is blurred whether this is a work contact or a friend. If the Commissioner is to receive gifts from him, how do we define it? Whether he should be regarded as a work contact or a friend. Originally he started out as a work contact, but over the years he became a good friend. Was there enough guidance so the Commissioner could make the right decision? Mr. Pei? Well, I think that's tough. There are many possibilities, and this is rather hypothetical. I think to a large extent, it's not just about the Commissioner. For any public officers, they would face a similar situation. That is, they have to form a judgment themselves as to whether this is a work relationship or a personal relationship. I refer to the AN. There are regulations in there, but of course at the end of the day it's a matter of judgment on the part of the public officer concerned. I am afraid that I cannot really give a general answer to a rather hypothetical situation. Mr. Chairman, then I won't ask hypothetical questions. I'll ask questions on facts. If I could refer the Commissioner to page 51 of the PAC report. Page 51 of the PAC report. There are several paragraphs, 128 to 130. That's page 56 of the English report. Now it's about acceptance of gifts, souvenirs. Some of the most striking gifts, giant screen costing some $100,000 to $200,000. During your term, did you ever receive gifts of similar value? Mr. Pei, the screen, it was not presented to Mr. Tong himself. It was the opening of the new ICAC building. The screen was presented to the ICAC as a souvenir. I've been in office for 20 months. I've not received such gifts. Now, going by your latest guidelines, sorry, I still have to ask a hypothetical question. I'm talking about the ICAC itself. If, say, it's received a gift worth $200,000, going by the latest guideline, of course, the gift is presented to the ICAC. How would you handle it? If there's such a gift now, would you consider rejecting the gift even though if it's presented to the ICAC? Because the ICAC is an important supervision organization. It must be seen to be clean. Now the gift may be presented to ICAC, but it's an expensive gift, $200,000. So if you go by the guideline now, how would you handle the gift? Mr. Chairman, personally, or firstly, in the Commission Standing Orders, CSO, it's already stated clearly that we should not exchange gifts as far as possible. And now we strictly enforce that regulation. That means we will not receive gifts of this nature. And secondly, now let's say we just had the 40th anniversary celebration. We did not receive any gifts. All the guests we invited, if they suggested giving us gifts, we declined their kind offer. And we produced a documentary for our 40th anniversary. It was produced by the Xinhua News Agency some time ago. Or it was produced by, in collaboration with a news organization, and afterwards they wanted to send us some gifts and we declined also.
Let me make a summary. The 40th anniversary of the ICAC symbolizes a milestone of the ICAC's presence in Hong Kong, and the commissioner said that they did not receive any souvenir. He is the commissioner. He's the leader of the ICAC, and I think that it is puzzling that when they're given gifts, they have to receive it. You may be the commissioner, and you have the power to turn down a gift. The ex-commissioner did not do this at all. Please don't make a comment. Well, then I don't have anything else to say. Next, Mr. Lo Wai Kwok, to be followed by Mr. Chung Kwok Pen. Thank you. I have some questions about the bestowing of gifts and souvenirs. Mr. Pei said in his opening remark, he explained that why on a number of occasions the information supplied by the ICAC was different, and that my last understanding was that the cost of souvenirs and gifts amounted to 1.3 million in the days of Mr. Tong. I gave a detailed answer on the 27th of May 2013 in the security panel meeting, and I said that during Mr. Tong's term, the total value of gifts given and souvenirs amounted to about 724,000. Compared to the answer given on the first occasion to the Finance Committee, the FC, we supplied a figure of 218,163. And yes, there is a discrepancy. I mentioned 1.3 million because according to the IRC report of the Independent Review Committee on ICAC's regulatory systems and procedures for handling official entertainment gifts and duty visits, it was released on the 12th of September. And in the report, it stated that the expenditure on gifts and souvenir during the term of Mr. Tong amounted to 1.3 million. How come there is a discrepancy between this and 724,000? May I defer to the Assistant Commissioner? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Low, for his question. The actual amount, well, let me give you some background information. The calculations of expenditure. Mr. Low mentioned 1.3 million. It refers to the entire commission. He may get that from our accounts. And when it comes to, say, the CRD, the Operations Department, or the CPD, the Corruption Prevention Department, they all have their own expenditure. For the for the commissioner's giving of gifts and souvenirs in his official capacity, and the Commission's organization of large-scale seminars, workshops, open days, they all are included in the 724,000. And we gave answers accordingly. Oh, that's why I was mixed up. Mr. Tong and the Commission. And I think that departments should be included as well. And now I understand that the expenditure of departments are carved out. Well, yes, that's right. So we're talking about those given out in the name of the Commission. amounted to 1.3 million. Am I right? Yes. In a question directed at Mr. Tong, it referred to a list. And I see some items that also appears in other departments. Say, for example, some small souvenirs bearing the logo of the department. They can be as small as stationery items or key rings. And members asked about food. Food is different and special because for a government department is very seldom, or even it's very seldom for them to give out food. They may not even do so. And there are some souvenirs, general souvenirs, standard ones bearing the logo of the ICAC or the department. On the other hand, I see that there are some special ones, say crystal ornaments. Mr. Tong explained in a previous occasion that it was used in an exchange of souvenirs during overseas visits. And it was also mentioned that in the past, standard souvenirs were given, and so it wasn't desirable to use the same gifts. Some of the items amount to $2,000 or $4,000. Say, for example, a tiger shape sculpture and one in the shape of a goat. What were the considerations in the giving of these gifts? Were there approvals given? Was the fact that it was used in an exchange with other organizations considered? Was there a ceiling? And what were the considerations? Commissioner, in relation to the giving of gifts under CSR, well, the CSR was translated into our CSO. There is no elaboration or clarification of the ceiling. I think it's for the heads of departments to take into consideration appropriateness and relevant factors. For those given out by the commissioner, it's in general his decision. If you refer to a particular gift, it's part of the investigation, so we can't answer you. Okay, I understand. Mr. Pei, I know that in relation to guidelines to department, when it comes to gifts, giving of gifts is been tightened. Can you give us an idea? $1.3 million was spent on it in the days of Mr. Tong for the entire commission. So what is the budget now for over a year? When I know that, say, for example, in a seminar, you have to give out information kits to attendees, I understand that. And when there are visitors, you have to give them souvenirs. That's also understandable. So how much is the budget? And in the future, is it going to be the case that there is not going to be food anymore? Well, you have to prepare budget for those that are consumed on the spot. But I understand that there won't be giving of food as gifts anymore. In general, there is no budget or limit. And if you ask me about the past 18 or 12 months and our expenditure in this regard, we don't have the information. Now we can supply it to you after the meeting. And I'm sure that it will be less than that spent during the days of the ex-commissioner. When it comes to giving of gifts, the best approach is to waive that. We will before the visit talk to the other side and agree that that should be dispensed with. And in general, when it comes to giving of gifts, we will give annual reports of the ICAC and nothing special. When it comes to shields or plaque, it's on rare occasions when we do that. The existing regulation is satisfactory. When it comes to food, it's forbidden. Food in any shape or form is forbidden, is all prohibited. I have a question about the 4th of February. A few days ago, there was a press report saying that at the beginning of September 2011, the ICAC hosted a dinner involving 34 consulates general. And the caption of the report says that it was a dinner hosted by the ICAC but catered for by chefs of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Can you explain? Any entertainment in the days of Mr. Tong is part of the investigation. I'm afraid I cannot give you a reply. Mr. Chong. Well, Mr. Tong said that he could not reply because he has not read the information. But when it comes to general practice, or was there a precedent that outside chefs were engaged in the providing catering service? Well, I cannot answer you about about any information related to Mr. Tong's days, but for those that are in my term, I will have to go back to find the information before I can answer you. Mr. Chung, when it comes to giving of gifts, what counts as gifts and what counts as souvenirs? Commissioner, my understanding is that gifts is a general term. Souvenirs refer to an item. The recipient can just use it as an ornament, as memorabilia. And on the item, there may be the term, maybe the name of the event, the date, the occasion, or the name of the bestowing organization or the recipient organization. Or it may bear the name or the logo of the bestowing organization. It serves as a memorabilia. And there is no resale value. When it comes to dinner functions like this, the general practice is that the details will be decided by the Commissioner. In my term, these dinners are simple as that, dinners. There is no special arrangement. The general practice is that we will have a list of guests and the accompanying colleagues, the venue, the menu, the price, and the expenditure per capita, and that should be inclusive of gratuities, beverage, desserts, or whatever. and items that are brought along and procured from outside. So all the information will be there for my approval. So usually the commissioner will be aware of that and will have to give approvals. Well, I can only talk about the practice or the approach in my term. And we've always talked about Form 569, and it sets out the details of information required. And the information will be filled in by the person in charge for my approval. Well, I know that Mr. Pei, you have quite a stringent approach. Let's first leave alone Mr. Tong. For other ex-commissioners, is it the case that their approvals are required before such activities or events were organized? Well, I haven't looked into that, so I don't really know. The purpose of Form 569 is to get approval in advance. You can only proceed with an approval. Well, has there been an occasion when there was internal objection? And in spite of that, the commissioner went ahead. That means that the internal objections were futile. I can only answer in relation to my term. My approach, as I've said, is one of discussion and deliberation. I'm not just talking about entertainment. Anything. We will put our heads together. We have discussions and sometimes debates. And in the end, the most important thing is to forge a consensus. And that's how it worked. And that's how it works. Well, if there were objections from the higher echelon, who, and without a consensus, who is to make the decision? Is it the commissioner? In theory, yes, but if there is strong objection from some colleagues, I, as the commissioner, will have to carefully consider the objections. If I are to ignore the objection and go ahead, I have to be very clear why I do not agree with the objection, and I will have to have a very clear stance so that I can explain in the future. If there are internal objections and in the end the commissioner made a decision, would there be records? In my term, there was not an occasion when that happened. And if this is to happen, I think there should be a clear record, because afterwards someone may want to find out the details and the person may have left the post. So a desirable approach is to keep clear records. Well, the commissioner talks about himself only, his term. But would you have the records of related to previous commissioners? Well, I can't answer you now because I will have to go through all the records first. Mr. Dennis Kwok. I would like to follow up on Mr. Chung's questions.
Mr. Pei, if you have senior colleagues who raise a different point from the does not agree with the commissioner, you think that this should be put on record. So would you consider, preparing a guideline so that when there are differences of view and such differences should be recorded, so that where you have divergence of views, there should be a clear record? Commissioner, Chairman, if there are strong objecting voices, or if we have colleagues who disagree with a particular point, then I agree with members that this should be recorded, and it certainly can be done. I'm just making a suggestion. According to Article 56, Bracket 3 of the Basic Law, if the CE and the members of the Executive Council do not agree on a particular matter, the record must reflect that. Mr. Chung Kwok Pan was also making the same point, that is, in future, should a similar incident happen, then the staff of the ICAC, if they believe that certain activities or functions are not appropriate and the commissioner still insisted, then at least there is a mechanism requiring him to put it on record rather than saying that it must be done or should be done. Would you agree, Mr. Pei? Chairman, I agree. Mr. Kwok's point is that it must be recorded. We certainly can do that. Chairman, I will now change my topic. On the 9th of April 2013, at a special FC meeting, I asked some questions about the bestowing of gifts. Earlier, many members already asked the same question, and I don't want to repeat them here. I think Mr. Pei would agree that there were some problems with the way this was handled at the time. That is, when you answer questions at our FC meeting, there were omissions in your reply. Would you agree? Commissioner, I've already said earlier that when I asked my colleagues, checked with my colleagues afterwards, they've already explained to me that about what they were thinking at the time. Afterwards, we said that in our reply, we said that the gifts referred to were actually souvenirs, and we think that that answer is not satisfactory. So I think I've already stated my position very clearly. Mr. Kwok, do you think anyone had been negligent in dealing with this? Well, Chairman, I'm now conducting a criminal investigation, although I'm only focusing on the criminal part. But as I told members, it also involved all the colleagues concerned. Regarding the reply given to the FC, we're talking about the 5-year tenure of Mr. Tong. And I've also told the media that we've asked all our colleagues who have been involved. So we asked them different questions. Regarding the final conclusion, we definitely will consider that whether or not any of our colleagues have made any mistakes. Mr. Kwok, so Mr. Pei, are you saying that it's still under investigation, therefore it's not appropriate for you to make any further comments? That's right, Chairman. Well, in that case, I won't pursue this point any further. Chairman, I'd like to ask the Commissioner the next question. That is, in explaining to the public how is advantage defined under the POBO, do you think that because of this incident, the public will have a negative perception, in light of how the POBO has been implemented? I think under the ordinance, the definition of advantage is very clear. There are no ambiguities. I think what happened over the past year or so, obviously had caused the public to had an adverse impact on the public's confidence of the ICAC. It has also adversely affected the image of the ICAC. Well, our efforts now is to restore the public's confidence and the support for the ICAC. Chairman, I raise this question because I'm not focusing on any particular incident. Now, from a series of things that we have seen, including chefs being sent to the ICAC headquarters to provide catering service, and the gifts accepted on certain occasions, and the way the ICAC dealt with what is meant by advantages and gifts. They also made omissions and mistakes. So the public seems to have the impression as that what is defined as advantage and acceptance of advantage, you're not sending a clear impression or message to the public, and that you might have a double standard. So, Mr. Pei, I hope you will bear this in mind when you conduct your internal review and investigation. I hope you will actually, restore the public's confidence. Thank you for that reminder, Mr. Kwok. I think what happened has an impact on the ICAC. I've already explained when we answered the questions at the FC meeting. We had not deliberately tried to hide anything. When we asked our colleagues afterwards, in fact, our understanding, there was some discrepancy in our understanding of the term gift, and our colleagues explained why they had that thinking at the time. Well, anyway, to sum up, we did not deliberately hide anything. But regarding the discrepancy in our understanding of the term, we've already offered a public explanation. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question regarding overseas visits. I believe that if the Commissioner needs to go on a duty visit, before that decision is made, I'm sure he would have discussed that with his colleagues and plan the itineraries. Is that a correct understanding, Commissioner? Yeah, I think that is a correct understanding. For duty visits, normally preparations would need to be made beforehand. For example, the itineraries would need to be worked out, and what activities needed to be planned, and so on. All these would need to be done beforehand. Sometimes in overseas visits, the Commissioner may need to give talks, and therefore preparations would need to be made. PowerPoints need to be ready to help him present, help him give those talks. So in this regard, normally for overseas duty visits, there would be a purpose and an objective, and it would have been discussed beforehand. If I look at ICAC 2C, Appendix 18, we learned that very often after an overseas visit, if it was an important visit, the Commissioner would submit a report to the CE. So during the time when Mr. Tong was Commissioner, in his report to the CE, how many reports did he submit to the CE regarding his overseas visits? Chairman. Earlier, at the PAC meeting, we've already told the committee, and you'll find this in ICAC 2C, Appendix 18, and we had a written reply. We said that Mr. Tong, after completing his overseas visit, had reported to CE on important matters, and in view of the confidentiality of the discussions with organizations concerned, and in the absence of their consent to disclosure of the information, the ICC cannot provide copies of the reports. I'm just asking how many such reports there were. Chairman, I don't have the number offhand. I can certainly go back and check and provide a written answer later on. Other than submitting a report to the CE, every time the Commissioner goes on an overseas visit, there would have been an objective. So I'd like to ask this. That is, Mr. Timothy Tong, other than presenting a report to the CE, sometimes he may not need to submit a report. The ICC internally may need to follow up on have a a review as to whether or not the purpose of the visit has been served and so on. So my question is that after Mr. Tong has gone on such overseas visit, according to Mr. Pei's understanding, or do you have any records as to whether or not the Commission had any discussion on whether or not the Commissioner has achieved the purpose of the target? Since you have your weekly meetings, I'm sure that you would plan and discuss the visits beforehand. So afterwards, do you also have a follow-up discussion as to whether or not the purpose of the visit has been served, or or whether there were any follow-up that was which needed to be done? The duty visit during Mr. Tong's term, I don't really know the details. At the time, the CRD had assisted the Commissioner. Perhaps I can defer to Ms. Mo to give a general answer, which is not related to our investigation. Ms. Mo. Chairman, the CRD mainly liaison unit is responsible for arranging for Mr. Tong's visit if it doesn't involve the operation department. As far as we're concerned, prior to the visit, we would have conduct an internal meeting to discuss the purpose of the visit. And for such visits, normally 3 departments are involved. So the 3 departments would discuss what would be the respective work which need to be done by the 3 departments. After the meeting, the visit will proceed, and after the meeting, if any department needed to follow up on anything, then they would follow up in according to their own terms of reference. If anything special had happened, then there would be a report. So the CRD was involved, but the visit may also involve other departments, and I don't know how the other departments would deal with that. So could you, Mr. Porcher would also like to ask questions. So well, overseas visits, cost money, so there must be a purpose. So, Mr. Pei, what I'd like to know is whether you have any mechanism for the Commission to review whether or not the visit has served the purpose, would there be anything which had to be followed up? From what I've heard so far, different departments will follow up in their own respective way, and I've not heard about any specific procedures as to how they would do that. So I'd like to ask the Commission to comment on that. Thank you. Regarding overseas visit, I have not gone on many such visits, and I think I would need to really serve the purpose, achieve the purpose of the visit. Normally, overseas visit would mean attending international conferences. So the purpose is very clear. The target is hard to say. You attend an international conference, you discuss some things. You may say that the objective is achieved because the Commissioner had attended the conference. Sometimes we would do something with a particular purpose. Let's say in November last year, I went to the States. At that time, other than talking to the law enforcement agencies there, I also visited some UN organizations chairman. I don't think we have too much time. My question is very straightforward. My question is whether or not he thinks there is a need to come up with guidelines and procedures so that after the Commissioner's visit there will be follow-up and a review on the outcome of the visit, and whether or not there will be a wash-up meeting and so on. Every time I go on an overseas visit, I will need to apply to the CE. In my application, I have to tell him what I would do on that visit. What about afterwards? Would there be a wash-up? Yes, there would be. Yes. As to whether or not there would be a detailed, record, that might not be the case. Mr. Paul Chair. The reason why the ICAC omitted certain information in its reply to the FC, in ICAC 1, you've explained that very clearly. Looking at Appendix 48 and 44, apparently the three of you should have attended, should have been involved in the process. Is that right, Commissioner? I need to, look at the document. ICAC 1 at Annex 44 and 48. That would be pages 23 and 24 of the Chinese version. Chairman, I found the papers. Yes, Annex 44 and 48. I think the flowchart in Annex 44 explains in detail that Ms. Mo and Ms. Jenny, I think we see that you've been involved, and at some time the two of you have discussed the definition of souvenirs. Would that be correct, Commissioner? That is my understanding, Chairman. And that judgment doesn't show. It doesn't show that the two ladies actually, made the decision alone, but rather the judgment was made after the weekly meeting had deliberated on that. Chairman, as I said, regarding the information we provided to the FC last year. That is in 2014. Our colleagues already explained that the CRD referred the information to our headquarters, and our headquarters compiled a list which was then forwarded to the weekly meeting for discussion, and I chaired that meeting. At that time, they decided that to answer the question, they would it would be sufficient to include only the gifts given to the officials. And I didn't realize that there were other gifts as well. So I'd like to clarify that this was the procedure. But at the time of the weekly meeting, we would have already had all the information which had been properly sorted out. To obtain more accurate information, you involve more than 20 staff. They spend 95 days and you mentioned this in 46, Annex 46, to prepare the supplementary information. Chairman, in my opening remark, I've already said that all the expenses concerning these gifts and souvenirs, what would be most accurate will be the invoices of the accounting department, kept by the accounting department. Other than the invoices kept by the accounts department, there is no rigid requirement that we must keep other records. So when the FC gave us the question, and I've also explained that at the time nobody had a full picture of the total number of gifts which had been given by Mr. Tong during his 5-year term. Our understanding at the time that the CRD and the admin department would have the records because they were mainly responsible for helping Mr. Tong with matters related to gifts. So they collated all the records that they had, that is the gifts presented to officials, and when they reply to the question posed by the FC.
Annex 48, paragraph B. You said that like many other government departments using the Treasury's system, the ICAC does not keep a separate accounting and payment record for the gifts bestowed. Now, this is the error you are committing. You have committed it. Probably you're still committing it now. So have you now got other departments doing the same thing now, making amends to this mistake, so they won't have to spend so much manpower afterwards to compile the information? Do they now keep proper records? Now, what I meant here was that we went by the Treasury's requirements in keeping the records. And in response to members' earlier questions, I said we are already doing something extra. In addition to the invoices kept by the accounting department, we're also compiling a different set of records, and we are working very hard to computerize the records. If in future we ask questions, then because of the computerization, we should be able to give an accurate and prompt reply. Now it's almost time we have to end this discussion. I would like to thank Mr. Pei for coming to the meeting. If necessary, the Select Committee may invite you to another hearing. Ms. Sit Ho actually would like to ask questions for the second round. Perhaps some of the questions could be put in writing, and we might ask you for further information in writing. Mr. Pei, I hope you will take note of that possibility. Mr. Pei and your colleagues, you are now excused. Thank you. Can I ask members to proceed to room 4 for the closed session of the meeting? That's the end of the hearing. Thank you.